first thing I'm going to work on is the crust. I have 2/3 of a cup of water here that I put in the microwave for about 30 seconds just to make it warm. You don't want it hot, you just want it warm. And to this water, I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons of active dry yeast. And I'm just going to stir this up to dissolve the yeast. And I'm going to set this aside. For this dough, I'm going to be using my KitchenAid. You can most certainly do this by hand. It's entirely up to you. I find it easier to use the KitchenAid. I'm going to add 2¼ cups of all-purpose flour in my bowl and a teaspoon of salt. And I'm using the dough hook for this entire process, so just gonna turn this on to mix that salt in with the flour. And while this is going, I'm going to take 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil, and I'm going to put this in with the flour as it's mixing. And basically I'm going to scrape down the sides here. Basically what you're doing at this point is cutting in the oil into the flour, just like you would when you're making biscuits or anything like that. Alright, that looks pretty good. Scrape off the hook here. And now to this, I'm going to add our yeast and water mixture. I'm just going to add it all in at one time. And I'm just going to let this go until it's mixed up. Now this should start to form a ball of dough. And if it doesn't, which I don't think it's going to, I'm going to add maybe about another teaspoon of water to that. And see if that helps it come together. And maybe another teaspoon. And that should be good. And I'm just going to let this, I know my mixer sounds like it's dying about now, but I'm just going to let this knead for about a minute or two. Alright, that's been going for a minute or two. And I'm going to scrape this dough hook off. Get all that dough off of there. And I'm going to let this rise slowly in the refrigerator all day. I'm going to actually form this into a ball. And you can see how nice and smooth this how nice and smooth this dough is. And I'm just going to use the same bowl that I mixed this in. I'm going to spray a little nonstick spray in there. Put the dough in, roll it around. Spray it again on top just to make sure that it's completely covered with that. This way I don't have to dirty another bowl. And I'm just going to take a piece of foil, cover this, and I'm going to put this in the refrigerator to rise. And I'm going to let this rise all day. Now for the sauce. I've got a pan here over medium-high heat. I'm going to add maybe a tablespoon or so of extra virgin olive oil to that. And I'm going to add half of a yellow onion that I've chopped up fine. I'm going to saute this for about a minute. And then I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of prepared minced garlic. You can use fresh garlic if you would like. It's about 2 to 3 cloves or so. And you don't want to burn this garlic, so I'm going to make it, only saute it for a few seconds. Then I'm going to add a 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. I'm using Di Fratelli. This is actually a double recipe, and the reason being is because I cannot find quality crushed tomatoes in a 14 to 15 ounce can. All I can find them in is 28 ounce, so that's what I'm using. Give that a stir so it doesn't bubble up on me. Then I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of dried basil and 1 teaspoon of salt. I'm just going to stir this together. I'm going to turn the heat down to medium. And get all that basil and salt and onion and garlic stirred into the tomatoes there. And I'm going to cover this and cook this over medium heat for 10 minutes. Stirring every couple minutes or so. And after about 10 minutes, this is what we have, a nice delicious sauce. I'm going to turn the heat off on that. I'm going to let this cool a little bit before I start to assemble my pizza. Now to make our pizza. Before I roll out the dough, I have a 10-inch deep dish pizza pan here. I got this from a local restaurant supply house. If you have a restaurant supply house, I suggest you go there to get it. This was only $4. I'm going to take some butter, real butter, and I'm going to grease this pan on the bottoms as well as the sides. And when I get that done, I'm just going to set this off to the side until my dough is rolled out. For my dough, I'm just going to pull this out of my bowl there, and I'm going to cut out 1/3 of this dough, and this will be our top crust. So there's 1/3 of it. I'm just going to set that off to the side. Now the rest of this, I'm not going to flour my counter because there's so much oil in this dough, it really doesn't need it. And I'm just going to roll this out until it will fit into my pizza pan and will go up the sides of it. And it looks like that will be good. So I'm going to take this, pull it up off of the counter, and put this into my pizza pan. And I forgot to mention that I have turned my oven on. It is preheating at 450 degrees, and I took the middle rack out and set the bottom rack as far down on the bottom as it will go. So what you're just going to do is put your dough in there and take the edge and just kind of roll it over the top so it stays in place. And you want to make sure and work all the air bubbles. I don't know if you can see this, there's air bubbles in the corners, and you'll have to pull it out and push the dough down and get all those air bubbles out. Alright, I think I got all those bubbles out. Now it's time to start layering. I've got 1 pound of Italian sausage here that I have pre-cooked and drained. And I'm going to put this in the bottom. Just like that. And then I have 3 ounces of pepperoni. And I'm going to put a layer of pepperoni on. Just like that. And then I have 3 ounces of Canadian bacon that I'm going to layer on. Now for our cheese, I've got a 8-ounce package of mozzarella cheese. I'm going to add this entire package, as well as another half package for a total of 12 ounces of cheese. Put that in there like that. And this may seem like a lot of cheese, but cheese is good. I'm just going to spread this around and make sure it gets all the way out to the edge and down. And then I'm just going to press this down. Just like that. I'm going to set this off to the side, and I'm going to roll out our top. Now that that's rolled out, I'm going to pick this up, bring our pizza back over here, and lay this dough down on top. And I'm just going to pull it out to the edges and crimp it with the bottom crust. Now I'm just making sure that this is well sealed, and you want to have a lip around the top because that will contain your sauce. And before I put the sauce on, I'm going to tear open some holes in the top, and this will allow the steam to come out from inside the pizza. Just like that. And now I'm going to take my sauce, and remember I made a double batch of sauce, so I'm going to only put in half of this sauce. About like that. And just spread this around on top, and then I'm going to put this, like I said before, on the bottom rack of a 450-degree oven, and I'm going to cook it for 20 minutes. And after 20 minutes I will pull it out and put Parmesan on top. And you want to cover this before you put it into the oven. Do not use foil. I just take another pizza pan and put it on top. So after 20 minutes I will be back to finish it up. Now I'm going to take the cover off of this. Pull this out, and I'm going to put maybe a quarter cup of Parmesan cheese right on top. Ooh, this is hot. Just like that. Put this back in, leave it uncovered for another 7 minutes. Now finally, after 7 minutes with the Parmesan cheese in the oven, I left it uncovered for that part. I took it out and I let it sit and rest for about 10-15 minutes now. And now it's ready to serve up. Just go ahead and slice yourself a piece. Alright. And there you go. Chicago style stuffed pizza.